preface this by saying, every time I'm doing the channeling, when that energy connects, you'll see that the voice and the video are not matching. It does something to the recording while it's recording. And you'll notice now is fine, and when the channeling, when that energy, when I disconnect from that energy, you'll see that everything is lined up again. So it's not something wrong with my computer. It's something to do with that energy connection that's in place. And I think that's one way that you can see sometimes that this channeling is genuine, because it affects the way it's recording during the channeling time. So interesting. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get into Mother Theresa came through. And just an FYI, Nityananda, the Avadut, not this one that's absconding from the law, he's still salty on the other side, and he's basically not interested in coming through for your curiosity. You know, if you want the path and you're serious about it, God's going to open the doors for that. But I'm not here to satisfy people's curiosity. Basically, he's the same as he was when he was here. And yeah, I have to respect that. Okay, he left the body because he said that people just gimme, gimme, gimme. What I came to give, you didn't want. And so I left. Okay, that's simple. So on that note, I'm going to leave this here, and we're going on to Mother Theresa, what she had to say. Oh, I just had another one cross by. Oh, I could see her face, but I'm not. Worked in Calcutta. None. They just sainted her. What's her name? And she always, from what I've read about her, she had doubts with her walk yet. And there are some good stories about her, and then there are some other stories. People want to vilify people, and I don't feel like she was out for name and fame, although there are those people that are going to try to say that. She ministered to those that were ill in Calcutta. And her name almost comes in, and then it goes out. And I just feel her impressing my name's not important. But she had difficulty with her journey. And I feel with her a sadness about that. I'm feeling that she didn't have the faith that people wanted to think that she had. She's going to come through anyway. That okay, let me see if I can link up with her. I just feel with her this a pressure for the time when she was in the earth plane, that people wanted to say she had this great faith and stuff, but she didn't. She was holding, I was feeling like I'm holding on to my faith as strongly as I can, and knowing these are the things I should be doing. But it didn't come easily. Just I gave what I could. As sincere as I could. But it wasn't, I feel it wasn't with a glad heart. It was that surrendering to what the idea of what I should be doing. And having the thought of the suffering Christ. I was caught up in the suffering Christ and trying to give to suffering humanity as if I were treating Christ. And I just feel as, my heart is sad because I was very misunderstood in my path of seeking and surrender. I was surrendering into an ideation, but was not the fulfillment. I was missing that fulfillment. I was missing that light. And it was very heavy for me. It was very heavy. I always had this feeling of burden. I think also I was very, very hard on herself here as to feeling of what the perfect nun should be, and I was far from being a perfect nun. I was walking and trying to outwardly present what a perfect nun would look like, but I wasn't that. My faith wasn't strong enough to have that perfect surrender that a nun should have. I was not seeing the resurrected Christ. I was caught up in the suffering Christ and missed so much opportunity while I was there due to misunderstanding, mistaken teachings, mistaken ideology. For Christ is not the Christ of suffering. He is the Christ of liberation. Okay? And now, the other side, there is that peace. But that peace is also tinged with this feeling that I was not the representation that I could have been, and have been so much of misjudgment on both sides as to the life that was being lived there. Christ is the giver of liberation, gladness. And all I could see was the suffering, and wanted to transfer that suffering of Christ on the cross to the suffering people in the street. Now, yes, I did try to give them aid and lessen their suffering, but that's not what ultimately it's about. Ultimately, it's about that liberation, peace, gladness of heart. But while there, I didn't have gladness of heart. I had this heavy burden. I was burdened, feeling the burden of carrying this cross, because I misunderstood about the teachings. When he says, take up your cross and follow me daily, I took it as a burdensome thing rather than seeing beyond that time, because that time was very limited. The time of the cross was limited. So I didn't get past that time of Golgotha, of the crucifixion. I stayed stuck there rather than going forward to the liberated one, the liberated being. The joy and the hope of that salvation, which came and was offered and was given. I don't begrudge my time as a nun, but I think too much was made of my life. And there are those that want to vilify me, but while I was there, I was doing the best that I thought I could do, and it was difficult because I was holding to wrong. I was holding to wrong things, and that's a burden. That's a burden. I didn't see fully the truth until I left the form and I'm on the other side. And now I can see that loving embrace, okay? That loving embrace, that joy, that beauty of the liberated one. And rather than being in that liberated one, I was stuck in the suffering. So I didn't give what all that could have been given. And I look at my life after I left the form and saw that really also I was suffering in a way that I didn't need to. I was burdened in a way that I didn't need to be because of false ideas taught by the church and a false understanding of what was being given, what had been given. Okay. So I presented to the world what that ideation I thought would be the perfect nun, serving the suffering Christ. Yet Christ is not a one of suffering. Christ is not that. Christ is this one of fulfillment, love. Yes, compassion as well, but not as I was trying to make it be. Not as I was trying to give. You cannot be a caricature or attempting to play the part of something and your heart is burdened. Then something's off. Something's wrong. Something needs to be looked at if you are being burdened in that way. Step back and reevaluate what you are doing on your journey. Yes, the spiritual walk is about surrendering, but you surrender into the liberated Christ, the Christed one, the one that rose, the one that gives life eternal, not into this dynamic of suffering, because then you suffer, okay? And you cannot aid others if you are coming from a place of suffering within yourself, rather than seeing that liberation, that light, that love. So there are many things when I left that I encountered in my journey, because you relive your whole journey. All the attitudes, everything, and the way others felt when you were ministering to them, you could feel also everything that was coming from them. And they could feel your reality, and they could feel your fakeness. And it's a burden when you know you didn't give your best and they knew it. You can't fool God. You can maybe fool yourself, but you can't fool the divine. You can't fool God. So you have to be honest with your life and make the shifts that are needed before you leave the body, before you leave the form and transition into the other planes. If something is not feeling right, in my case, I knew something was not fully there, not fully honest, not fully complete. There was something missing. And yet I tried to move forward. I tried to give what I could give from my limited understanding. So yes, we surrender unto Christ, but surrender into the resurrected being, the life, the eternal life. Okay? Surrender into that rather into suffering. Because Christ is not that suffering element. Christ is not that suffering being. And neither should we mistakenly take that verse, take up your cross and follow me, to be a thing of burden. There are those that mistakenly will whip themselves to try to come into alignment with the suffering Christ, but he is resurrected. Why are you doing that? Christ does not want to see you suffering in that. He came to tell you, fear not and come out of the suffering. The good news. What good news is there in whipping yourself? What good news is that in that flagellation? Okay? So I just want to say, Christ has risen and brought the life and the love and those things of value. Yes, compassion, but compassion in the right way. Empathy in the right way. So while I was raised up by some and vilified by others, God knows the heart. God knows the struggle that I had on the earth plane. And so much suffering I created myself because I held to these wrong doctrines. My misunderstanding was great. And so the faith that should have been held to in gladness and in joy was held by a burden that I put on myself. So come to the joy and understand the liberated Christ, the Christed one. And my prayer is that you can know the joy. You can participate in the joy. You can participate in the love of God and the Christed one, rather than taking on an unnecessary physicality of suffering. And I feel like she's pulling away now. Okay. Whew. Well, I'm going to have to yeah, so odd. I can just, her face is there, her energy is there, but the name is just like, my name's not important. The name is not, it has nothing to do with anything, the name. And I think mainly the message was don't buy into wrong dogma, okay? And be trapped by that. There's something more. There's something more. So I'm going to leave this here. Love and light. See you online.